I was lucky enough the other evening to be in attendance at Professor Nick Maynard's lecture in UCC in Cork. Nick is an Oxford professor who spent the last many years in Gaza training young medical professionals. He's just recently back from Gaza, absolutely extraordinary human being. I don't think anything prepares you actually for listening to a doctor who has just returned from the coalface of a genocide describe what he has seen. Genuinely one of the most harrowing, disturbing things I've ever listened to in my life. And I couldn't help but think about COVID during his lecture. And what I mean by that is, at the start of COVID and throughout the pandemic, we had a government-led campaign to honour and respect and show our gratitude and appreciation for our extraordinarily courageous frontline workers. And rightly so. You know, we stood at our doorsteps and in a beautiful collective display of solidarity and empathy and just awe, we gave them a round of applause. And yet, in Gaza, healthcare workers are not at the front line against a virus. They're at the front line against a genocide. They're at the front line against their own annihilation. Where are the claps? Where's the spirit of we're all in this together? Now, you could rightly point out that the West has proven spectacularly during COVID that we're all in this together is nothing but a hashtag. You know, as soon as the vaccine became readily available in the West, corporate media and governments were kind of happy enough to let people in the global south die without access to it. But just listen to some of the statistics that Professor Maynard alerted us to. And as he said himself, these numbers are just growing all the time. By day 175 of this genocide, 480 healthcare workers in Gaza had been murdered. 215 had been abducted and tortured. During a recent 2-week siege of Al-Shifa Hospital, at least two, but more likely many, many more doctors were executed as they tried to leave the hospital. And what's the West's response to all this? Complicated, isn't it? Like, have you ever seen a more transparent, abject display of racism in your life than for 33,000 Palestinians to be murdered? At least, mostly women and children, healthcare workers, journalists, academics, and the West largely shrugs its shoulders. And then some white people are murdered, which again is unequivocally wrong, and the West is up in arms, united in condemnation, but obviously very selective in its outrage. And what about if you're a healthcare worker in Gaza and you somehow managed to survive this genocide? Can you even get your head around the level of trauma? Like, I did a podcast with a friend of mine, Dr. Ahmed Abdeen. I'd urge you to check it out, in which he describes being a young trainee neurosurgeon on his first ever gig. And he goes to his local hospital during the genocide of his own people. And one of the first jobs that he does is picking up the body parts of another human being. And Ahmed and many, many like him are going to work under those conditions every day with no knowledge whether his family are alive or dead. So listen, if you're one of those people who was so moved with solidarity towards healthcare workers during COVID, but now just seem to be kind of disinterested in what's going on in Gaza, that's fine, but you probably need to come to terms with the fact that you're a racist piece of shit. And Western governments and media, the mask has slipped. We all see you for what you are now. But would you please do us one favour going forward? Please shove the no to racism, inclusion and diversity stuff up your arses.